You're on.
Hey, late night from Willowdale. We haven't done a late night, and we are in Willowdale. We're at Young and Shepherd. We haven't done a late night from Willowdale video in 6-7 months. So, for all you people out there, yeah, we gave you a break. So, lots to talk about, but we're not. This is going to be a very short video. It's just a reintroduction to late night from Willowdale. So many things to talk about. COVID, Ukraine, you and like the world. So many things have happened. But let's start with the big issue of the day, which is the Ukraine, which is the big international story. So much has been written and talked about, but I think when all comes said and done, I think Vladimir Putin has made his point. He wants Russia to be respected. He's massed all these troops on the Ukrainian border. He's got the world's attention, and I think that's the point. I don't think he'll invade. I could be wrong. Hey, they could roll the tanks tomorrow. I could be totally wrong. But I don't think so. Like, he knows the cost to Russia will be very huge. I think he just wanted to make a point. Like, don't take Russia seriously. We're not a joke. Everyone makes fun of Russia. You know, Russia is a gas station masquerading as a country. I think Putin is trying to say to the world, we're not a joke. We have a massive military power, and don't take us for granted. And he believes that Ukraine is intrinsically part of Russia. He believes that Ukraine is a part of Russia, and he's always been upset at the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the fact that Ukraine has become very pro-Western, and that upsets him. And
in a way, he's kind of a tired character, right?
He's a tired character, and
like he's done the poisoning of agents, and he's done the poisoning of his own government. Like, and he's a tired character, and he's looking for vindication. I don't know.
Yeah, he's looking for a little vindication. You know, Russia is in many ways kind of a failed state, and a lot of people live in poverty, and it's a very wealthy country, but it's wealthy for the oligarch. It's wealthy for all the people around Putin, but it's not wealthy for a lot of people. And he's trying to, you know, he knows that, and Putin is trying to rally Russian nationalism and all of this, and the West is against it, but ultimately it'll fail. And this move on Ukraine, I think, is just, I think it's classic Putin. He's playing a weak hand well. He's like a poker player. He's playing a weak hand well. He's got the West on edge. He's got everybody on edge. And yet, what has he got? Not much. If he invades Ukraine, his country is totally isolated and totally destroyed in many ways. Financially, the Americans are going to strangle him. So, I think but he's got the world's attention. So he's already made his point. I think he'll try to de-escalate in some ways. I don't see an invasion of Ukraine. He'll try to de-escalate. He's made his point. He's got the world's attention. Russia is still a major player on the planet Earth, and he'll try to de-escalate. A war in Europe is not in anybody's interest, and not in Russia's interest. So, yeah. I think there's a lot of hype here. I think the bottom line is, if Putin invades Ukraine, Russia will be so isolated, and their economy will be totally destroyed, and that's not in his interests. And he's got so many corrupt, disgusting people around him who depend on access to the banking system of the Western world and everything. And they'd be very disappointed if they were sanctioned and totally isolated. So, and Putin would probably be deposed. So, yeah. Putin's made his point. He's got it. He got the attention of the world, but he will look for a way to de-escalate. So, and I think he has some legitimate concerns, though. NATO, I mean, Russia is totally surrounded, and I think there are ways we could help Putin out. Obviously, we need to update the security structures in Europe. The architecture of security in Europe needs to be updated, and this is a good way to do it. So maybe
and I think that the U.S. is very central to that progress or that project, right? Like, I mean,
yes, no question. The security architecture in Europe needs to be updated, and maybe this crisis in Ukraine is a good way to do it. There are lots of ways out of this crisis. There already are agreements in place about troop deployments and stuff. So in some ways it's kind of a manufactured crisis. Putin has heightened the thing, but you know what? It's time to update the security structures in Europe, troop deployments in NATO, and giving Russia certain assurances. The security architecture in Europe needs to be updated. And if Putin has brought this to the fore, that's a good thing. But his threatening Ukraine is stupid, and obviously, it's stupid, and it's.
Well, the thing is, at the ultimate end of this war, or to-be war, we need to get rid of countries like Russia. We need to get rid of countries like North Korea. Like, we need to get.
Russia isn't running rid of Russia. It's a massive country, but.
No, not get rid of, but I mean, just basically made to play nice, right?
Yeah, Russia has its own security interests. But Russia's not threatened by anybody. Ukraine is not going to threaten Russia. Kazakhstan is not going to threaten Russia. Putin has his own psychological issues because he grew up in a Russia, the Soviet Union, and he still wants he still feels like that was a humiliation, and he needs to restore Russian or Soviet glory. But that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So. But on the other hand, you got to respect Russia. It's a great power. You got to respect them, and you have to understand the security issues. And there's a way out of this crisis, no question. Easily, Ukraine is not going to be part of NATO anytime soon. Neither will Georgia. Neither will some of these countries Putin is concerned about. So it's kind of like, yeah, there's a way out of this. NATO's just have to say to Russia, no, Ukraine's not going to be part of NATO anytime soon, and neither will Georgia or none of the other countries you're concerned about. So. And we can talk about security arrangements in Europe and troop deployments. And, we can talk about the security architecture in Central Europe. And there's lots of room to talk about it. So, and there are lots of agreements already in place. So, yeah, this is kind of a manufactured crisis that Putin has done. I don't think he really plans to invade Ukraine. He just wants to get the West's attention, and he just wants people to respect Russia. And I get it. And so, actually, the Ukrainians are smart. They're saying, you know what? Don't make more of this than it is. So let's not make more.
Although Zelensky had a lot of he had a lot of like kind of respect for Putin when he first became prime minister. He had like this kind of like puppy dog kind of like puppy dog kind of respect for Putin, right?
Oh yeah, well, Putin is an interesting character, no question. He's a thug, he's a murderer, he's a bit of everything. And not to be underestimated, but ultimately, he knows he's playing a weak hand. He's playing it very well, and the forces arrayed against him are immense. NATO, invading Ukraine is not in Russia's interest at all. So, and he knows that. He's just threatening, and he's doing it well. He's got the world's attention, and he'll find a way to de-escalate. And nobody wants a war in Europe, and not the Russians, not anyone. So. And I think Biden has actually played it pretty good. Like Biden has played it well, and poor Biden gets credit for nothing. But President Biden has actually played this well. Not to escalate, he's played it well. So this crisis will play out, and Putin gets the respect that he wants. Russia gets the respect that it wants, and there'll be new arrangements in Europe about troop deployments and security arrangements, and nuclear weapons as well. So, yeah, there's lots of leeway and things are already. The media has hyped this up more than it is, and if there's a Russian invasion of Ukraine, I'd be very surprised. I don't see it happening. Putin's got what he wants: the world's attention. And the world's attention to the grievances of Russia. So, yeah. And some of them are kind of legit. Like, Russia's kind of surrounded. And it can all be addressed. So, and I'm not giving any sway to Putin. He's a thug and a murderer. But sometimes you have to deal with people like that. So, in terms of, Ukraine... There's a way to get out of the Ukraine crisis without nuttiness. And, when H.W. Bush, President Bush 41, when the Soviet Union dissolved and collapsed, President Bush, made a point of not humiliating Gorbachev or Russia or whatever. And it was smart not to do that. And that's what you got to do here. You got to just understand Russia's concerns and deal with it. That's a smart way to do it. You have to understand what they're thinking, and that's where we're at.
I just think that I think that Western countries have a lot to gain from basically standing up and saying no, right?
No, they can be firm. I think the West can be firm against Putin, but understand where he's coming from and say, okay, there's things we can negotiate on. Of course, Putin shouldn't have taken over Crimea unilaterally, and there's a crisis in the Donbass. Of course, I think we can. I think there's a way to deal with the crisis in Donbass and maybe could declare it a neutral territory. There's ways to deal with this, and I think the bottom line is when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1990-91, Bush 41, H.W. Bush handled it well. Didn't humiliate Gorbachev, didn't humiliate anyone. didn't take triumph over it.
Yeah, I know, but for some reason,
And that's why we need Biden needs to do the same
but
thing.
for some reason, nothing really ever happened, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Look,
you know, like that's weird.
the bottom line is most countries in the Soviet bloc joined NATO. A lot of people in Russia are very irritated by that. And this humiliation of this
Humiliation.
the humiliation of Soviet disbanding affects a lot of Russians. And Putin sort of exemplifies that. So you got to deal with that. So Ukraine is a lot of Russians think.
Yeah, but they haven't really ever dealt with it, right? Like all
No,
they did
no,
was
it's kind
they
of a-
haven't really. The Russians have never actually really dealt with it. All they did was actually form these like weird alliances with Iran and China and like you know at every turn, right? Like I mean they've just been very strange people, right?
Well, Russia, unfortunately, the West helped this. Russia became a country run by the mafia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The West, kind of under Yeltsin, helped it. This rush to privatization and capitalism, the West kind of helped that, and it was a wrong move. Gorbachev always thought. Gorbachev always believed in slow moves. And I remember being in a news conference with Gorbachev, as working for a university radio station, CIUT. I wanted to ask him, don't you think you made the move too quick to capitalism? Like, I never got to ask him the question. Yeltsin brought in a period of corruption and the oligarchs took over and Putin consolidated it, and Russia is a country run by the mob and Putin is the godfather. So there's a lot of history there. The West mismanaged the collapse of the Soviet Union. The West mismanaged the collapse of the Soviet Union. They turned it into a basically corrupt mafia state, which it exists today, and Putin is the godfather. But there's a lot of Russian nationalism, and you got to deal with that. And I think this Ukraine crisis is a good way to deal with that. Ukraine is an independent country, and Putin's moves on Ukraine has made Ukrainians more pro-Ukrainian and anti-Russian. So it's backfired on him. He knows it's backfired on him. He's looking away for to de-escalate. So we need to give him a chance to de-escalate, and we need to have a new security structure in Central Europe. NATO can do that. U.S. can do that. There are lots of ways out of this crisis. So I don't see Putin invading Ukraine. He's made his point. He's got the world's attention. That's what he wants. And now there's a way to de-escalate. So,
well, he could be seen as a pussy too, right? Like I mean, you know, the Britain, the United States, they're all pressuring him, and like
he'll find a way to de-escalate.
Like,
he's the top guy in Russia. He'll find a way to de-escalate. We got to give him a way to de-escalate, and nobody wants a war in Central Europe. Oh my God. So it's a complicated issue, but I think give Putin a way to de-escalate, address some of Russia's concerns, and it's all good. You know, there's a way to do this stuff. So, in terms of the other big issue, COVID, it's finally leaving us. And we're sitting in a bar tonight, thank God, enjoying a beer. Some of these COVID restrictions are crazy and over the top. And we're seeing rebellions in the Netherlands, all over Europe, here in Canada. I mean, the trucker thing is totally nutty. People use, people will latch on to stuff. The trucker stuff in Canada is totally nutty. and totally off the wall. But people start to latch on to this stuff. Because people have been 2 years into lockdowns, not lockdowns, vaccines, not vaccines, vaccine mandates. Fuck, you can understand why people are angry. You know, we're tired of wearing masks. We will wear them. We're all most of us are third dosed.
Hey. So let me ask you a question. What do you think about antinatalism?
Well, I do think we need to stop people having babies. Yeah, the planet's dying. The last thing we need is more people in the world. So, yeah, I am a big fan of limiting procreation. Oh my God. The planet is dying. Like, we don't need more people. God, 8 billion people on this planet. We can't handle anymore.
But aren't you just suggesting that lower population levels are just kind of the solution to everything?
No,
like, I mean,
of course they're not. There's lots of solutions. You know, stop over-salting your sidewalks and during a winter storm. I mean, like...
Yeah, but who's over-salting? I don't get it. Like,
Well, yeah. In my place where I live, they're over-salting. You know what I mean? It's minor solutions to the world's problems, but... Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Andrew, we gotta go because, you know, the memory is running out, so...
The memory's running out. We can talk about this. We haven't done a late night.
We can't. The memory is going.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Okay.